Got a home with a history, a street with a secret. Every door has a story if you're willing to seek it. From old brick streets to the homes we adore. Frederick's filled with mystery and memories and more. The story behind the door. The story behind the door.
Welcome to The Story Behind the Door, a podcast where we step into the homes that have shaped Frederick County's history, character, and charm. From the grand historic estates to downtown row homes to quiet farmhouses tucked away on country roads. Every home holds the stories of the people who live there, the details that make it unique, and the memories left behind the door. I'm Sharon Crisafulli.
And I'm Noreen Herod. Join us as we explore the architecture, the history, and the heart of the most fascinating homes in Frederick County, Maryland, one door at a time. Today we are taking you to 116 Clark Place, Frederick, Maryland, a home with presence, history, music, craftsmanship, and a garden that feels like it's just tucked away in the middle of the city. That brings us to the title of our podcast, The Sound of Music.
Ooh, it sounds so exciting. Well, just to tell you a little bit about 116 Clark Place, it was built in 1910, and it's an American four-square. So it's a little bit different than the other houses on the street that we see with Queen Anne style and Victorian and late Victorian. It was kind of modernizing the floor plan, making it very efficient, like a big square. And it also has a little bit of the colonial revival architecture. And when you're looking from the street, so when I stand out on that sidewalk and I look at 116 Clark Place, I see this stately, beautiful home.
Absolutely.
The beautiful brick facade, the dormered roof lines, the welcoming porch, and our owner of the house has this incredible fern that's growing on the front porch, and this welcoming furniture where you just want to take a seat.
That front porch is majestic.
I know. I can just imagine spending time there through the different seasons and enjoying it. And, you know, once you see the brick construction, it just gives this solidness to it.
Yes.
Very stately. But then you go in the back. It's kind of like a mullet. They say business in the front,
Yes.
party in the back, right?
Absolutely.
So we go to the back of the house and you have this magical garden.
Oh my gosh.
And our owner, Kathy, calls it her secret garden. You have a back patio and then you have this beautiful sleeping balcony. And this garden that's just been loved and cultivated for so many years.
Absolutely. So this month's featured home, as you said, is owned by Kathy McKenzie, and Dr. Brian McNeil. And Kathy generously shared all of her memories and feelings and special thoughts about this home. And though you won't hear her voice on this podcast today, we are so honored to share all of her memories and her feelings and all of her thoughts going forward with the home.
Absolutely. So excited to share that.
Yes. So she first walked through this home. This is a cool story. She first walked through this home with her realtor, and she went into the foyer and just suddenly felt goosebumps, like she knew this was her home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the home spoke to her, and I think that's what's so cool about historical homes. They have this layer of richness to them before you even know the people and the deeds and all of that. You just feel that presence when you walk through, and she felt it.
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. You're exactly right. So historic homes, for me, they just hit a little differently. They have, you know, they're just not structures. They hold this atmosphere. They hold this energy. They hold the memories and the sounds and artifacts of all the families that have gone before. And you know what, Noreen? That's exactly what makes historic homes so different. You know, they're just not structures. They hold this energy. They have atmosphere. They hold the marks of the people who loved them before. And 116 Clark Place, as soon as you arrive, you pick up on that vibe. It's stately without being cold. It is elegant without being untouchable. it feels like a home that has witnessed generations of Frederick life. And you know what? It still has so much more to say.
Oh, it really does, doesn't it?
It does. So, to really understand 116 Clark Place, I think we have to take a look back at the starting of the whole neighborhood there,
Yes.
the development. So, the home sits in what is one of Frederick's earliest planned residential neighborhoods, and it was designed and developed by three gentlemen, Keller, Williamson, and Bowers, in the late 1800s. And it was known as South Park Villa Estates. Now, this just wasn't going to be another group of homes that was being built in Frederick. It was done differently. They were, it was really a planned community with so much intention behind it.
Absolutely.
It included deeded buildings and usage for those buildings, usage restrictions. And it tells us a great deal of what the standards and expectations were of that time. And looking at it from the lens of like the first subdivision, so we see getting away from that Victorian, very decorative loft
That's a good
space
point. Yes.
to that American Foursquare. Let's use every bit of this home. And now here we come in with the deed restrictions and usage for the building. So they really had a vision in mind for Clark Place. And I think when we examine the deeds and look at it, a couple of things really stood out. One was the front porches. So they all had to have a consistent setback, and they had to be no wider than 10 feet. Now, I know you're an animal lover,
Yes.
and this one is going to upset you, but there were no hog pens allowed.
No, that is just so restrictive.
Right? So mean.
Yes.
This one you might like, you may not. You had to have indoor plumbing.
I love that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I like
it's a
it
great
too.
feature.
It really does. And also, the home had to cost at least $2,000
Which
to
is
build.
just so mind-blowing to look at that home.
Right.
And the brick and the presence of it.
Right. And you know, it's interesting when we look at later deeds and other deeds on the home, we actually found that that dollar number went up.
Yes.
So looking at the home next door, that
With
was
other lots
$2,500.
nearby.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting. So, of course, it was a significant amount of money at that time, but the details show us that, you know, South Park Villa was created as a quality residential neighborhood designed with order, beauty, sanitation, and a certain level of refinement in mind.
Absolutely. And that's what's so neat about that street when you stand on it, is that you feel like you're in this secluded little area with these homes that have such presence and craftsmanship, and it's just amazing. But you're actually right near a city, so it's its own little oasis, and you could see families raising their children on that street and children running on that street. It's just such a great feeling when you stand there.
It is. And also, if you love architecture and old homes, what I love is each home is different.
Absolutely.
You have something that is different on the street, which is fascinating and adds a lot to I think, the value of the properties.
Yes.
But perhaps the most meaningful detail is the street name itself. So Clark Place was named after General James C. Clark. And for me, that's what makes this story especially personal.
I love this.
He was my first cousin 4 times removed. So standing out in front of 116 Clark Place is just not looking at a beautiful historical home or one of Frederick's first planned neighborhoods. It's about a family name that has been woven into Frederick for generations.
That's what makes this podcast, this first one, so special to me. You know, we talked to Kathy and we talked to her about the details she loves about the home, and we've been there and we've been in that garden, but this is special. This is special. It has such a connection to you and your lineage.
So let's talk a little bit about General James C. Clark and who he
I
was.
love this story.
Yeah, you may be driving by the street, not realize you see the name Clark. What does that
Right.
mean to you? But Clark was a one-time resident of Frederick. He was a leading railroad executive of the 19th century. and a civic benefactor, and a man whose name still appears in the landscape today. You know, we have the street named after him.
Right.
There's also the fountain down at City Hall.
Definitely touched the community.
He really did. And what I love is, even though he passed away, I think he was in Louisiana, that he chose Mount Olivet as his final resting place.
I love that.
And his wife also, she was interred in Louisiana, and she was removed and put beside him as well as other members of his family.
Right.
And if I'm correct, I believe he has the second largest
said, yes.
monument there. Yes,
That's
behind.
fascinating. Francis Scott Key, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the second largest obelisk that is there and erected. So just a couple of things about him, right?
Right.
So we say he's the quintessential rags to riches story. At 13, his father up and left the family. And here he was in a position trying to help his mother and his siblings to go out there and earn money. And he went to the C&O Canal, and he applied to be a water boy for the mules.
That is so fascinating.
And he was turned away. They said, "No, you're too young." And he said, "Look, you don't understand. I don't want this job. I have to have this job to support my family."
So impressive at that age.
Right. So here you are, 13 years of age,
Right.
and he gets the job. And the ironic part is, in 1870, about 30 years later, he would come back to be president of that canal.
That's so cool. It gives me goosebumps, yeah.
And before his presidency of the canal, it was floundering. It was in financial despair. And he brought it to the
brought
most
it back.
prosperous times. And an interesting fact, too, a lot of people don't know, is he actually moved the headquarters of the C&O Canal to East Church Street
Oh.
when he was the president, and ran it out of there for a while, which I think is really
That
fascinating.
is cool. Now, you've done so much research on this, I know, with your ancestry, love of ancestry and genealogy. Did you ever find out why his father left the family?
So that's a very interesting question. Yes, I think I know through going through family memoirs and also looking at court cases. Kind of appears that he was a scoundrel.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and he took some of my family's money, which I'd like back at this point if I can get it. And he headed on out of town, never to be seen or
Never
heard from
to be
again.
seen again. Never
No.
came back.
No,
Okay.
and I often think, okay, so here was his son. He was the president of the Erie Railroad.
Right.
He was president, general superintendent of the Illinois Central Railroad. He ran the Ashland Iron Works, like all
So
of these
impressive.
great
Right,
accomplishments.
right.
But who knows? Maybe his dad leaving spurred him to be the man he became.
You know, it's true, right?
Yeah, there is no telling with that. So when I say that this story feels close to home, I mean that in more than one way. So as realtors, we love old houses, and they connect us to the people and the places that came before us. But as General Clark's first cousin, Porto's removed, right?
Right.
But who's counting? The street carries an added meaning for me, and it's a reminder that history, is not always far away. An interesting fact, when I was researching James C. Clark and his large presence in Chicago, I went to the Newberry Library.
Oh, wow.
Which is a great research facility. And I remember
Yes.
taking my vacation time and going through his
going
letters
through.
and correspondence. So hopefully we'll have more to come about him on future
Oh,
podcasts,
yes.
because he was very
Fascinating.
fascinating. And one of the stories that really sticks with me was the 1861, the Baltimore plot, when Abraham Lincoln was traveling by train to D.C. for his inauguration, and there was an assassination plot at hand. So General James C. Clark was in charge of preparing the trains and the routes and the troops and the protection and the security.
Wow.
So
Big
he could arrive.
responsibility.
Yeah, a lot of neat things. A lot
That
of
is
neat
very
things.
cool. That is very cool. And I love that we chose this home as going back to that as our first podcast, because not only do we have the history of the home but your ties to it and your family ties to it are just so cool to me. I love hearing about it, and I know you just love it.
And I love talking about it
right.
to anyone who
and
will
that makes
listen.
me, that makes me love it too. Yeah, I love that. And Kathy loves that house, and she's gone through it with us and showed us all the special items that she loves about it, and the touch she's put on the house, her and Brian, and I think it is just such a cool place to start our podcast.
I do too. So when we were talking to Kathy, she really went into the home's craftsmanship.
Absolutely, and I think that is what I love about historic homes is the attention to detail, which is amazing based on the amount of money and things that they spend. It's you see these houses these days that they try to recreate that, but it's just not the same. You've got the tall ceilings and it just so many touches to that home being in it that she loves, and I just think it's just it's just touches you when you go in the home.
It does, and I remember Kathy pointing out some of the things, right? The original floors
Yes.
are still in the house.
I know, they're beautiful.
And they're beautiful, which blows my mind. The plaster walls, the pocket doors, the
Right.
interior columns, stacked stone foundation. It's just an incredible home. And really, when we asked Kathy, what's your favorite feature about the home?
Right.
She couldn't pick one.
No,
And she
No.
came back and said, it's a time capsule.
absolutely.
And they have been the best stewards of
They
that
really
house.
have. They have really been good stewards, and you've told us that, filled me in, because I didn't sit down with her over that part, but about all the things she found in the home, which is so fascinating.
Oh my gosh.
And I can't
yeah.
wait for everybody to hear that, because
Right.
that's really,
That is such a fun part, because when you enter the home, the way that Kathy and Brian have maintained it, its integrity, its beautiful floor plan, they haven't chopped up the rooms. You really do feel like you're time traveling.
yes.
It's such a great energy in that house. I love it. And also when we usually go to Kathy's, we'll have a cup of tea first in the dining room. And that's probably one of my favorite things to do with her is to sip on the tea and look through these glorious windows. She's also an artist.
Yes.
And she has painted a beautiful oil painting of the home that sits in her dining room. But lo and behold, we always find ourselves out back in the garden.
Because it's majestic.
Wherever we start. And
my
Kathy
gosh.
calls it her secret garden hideaway. And the house, once you get behind it, it feels so personal and private. And I just want to go through just a couple of the plantings that she has there. So I have to look at my notes. She has crepe myrtles.
Beautiful.
She has butterfly bushes, hostas, cosmos, coneflowers, larkspurs, kangaroo palms,
Yes.
rigabegonias, spotted bee balm. And then everywhere you turn, in every corner, there is some unique little sculpture or a hanging wind chime.
It's so true.
And one corner we went back to, something caught my eye, and I'm like, what are those? They look like dog tags.
Right.
So we went and we looked, and it was a tribute to her Fiona, who is now
Yes.
gone, but was a precious dog. And Fiona had many outfits and many tags. So what Kathy and Brian did is they made just this very informal little sculpture that hangs with all of her tags.
Oh, I love that. What a tribute.
I know.
Yes.
I think that is just so sweet. And you'll find that over and over again. Not to mention that she has dill, lavenders,
So much. Those tomatoes.
tomatoes, yes, chives.
That sunflower.
It's a delight.
It really is. And I loved going and visiting that and the brick walkway going back. I know you're going to talk about that.
Tell
but
about the bricks. Tell about the bricks.
Bricks, and then they've got special bricks that are built into the brick walkway. I don't know what they're made of. They almost look like marble.
They do look like marble. I
that
don't
have
know.
their last names on them. It's so special. And then you go back to that gate. I always talk about that gate, which I just love with the features on it, which I think you said she got that from England, but I don't know
Yeah,
if
I'm
that's
not
the
sure. I
case.
think
We'd have
so.
to ask, but it's got such special features on it that just is so cool to open that gate to go back to that back patio area.
And then when you're in the back patio area, it is covered in trumpet vine.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what that is, Google it. It is beautiful. There's also an outdoor fireplace. So
Yes.
when we were touring the property, we noticed that it had a big S in it, which
Yes.
is not for Sharon.
Right.
But we're going to talk about who
We
that
are. It's
S
going to
was
lead us
for.
to why we named this podcast The
Right.
Sound of Music.
Exactly, because in this podcast, not only do we talk about the current owners and the architecture, but we're going to touch on one of the people who lived there in the past and really made a mark on history.
Right.
So I'm excited
right.
to dig a little deeper into that today. But let's talk about some of the treasures. You brought up
Yes.
treasures.
Yes.
So I asked Kathy, have you found any treasures? And I saw her face light up and she goes, 1 minute, please. And up the stairs she went and she came back with some treasures. So we started to go through them. There were children's marbles. There was a musket ball. Lots of arrowheads that we found in the yard. But
Was that back in the garden area?
yes, back in the garden area. And all I want to do is go out there and just start digging and looking
Right.
for more. I think it was a 1935 appliance tag, a wheat penny that was in the yard. And it just keeps giving all these clues
I love that.
of the people who lived there before.
Right.
But I think the coolest finds that Kathy had, so this is going to blow you away. There were 4 owners of this house, which I know
Yeah,
you're going to
only
get
4.
into.
I am.
Only 4
Yes, only
owners
4,
in
yes.
all of this time since 1910. But Kathy found upstairs a picture of Waletta Kiefer, the original
The
owner,
original owner.
on one side of the frame, and on the left-hand side was a picture of Waletta's husband and her son.
Oh,
So talk
So
about
special.
a treasure. Like, how did that survive?
right.
Through-
How did that get left through all the years?
Yeah, and the owners that it was there. But another really cool thing was when they were remodeling the bathroom, bringing it up to date upstairs, they removed the threshold. And on the back of the threshold in script was written Kiefer
Oh,
from the
how
original owners.
special.
And she has that.
Oh my gosh.
And like that goes back to the time capsule
That
thing.
goes back to them being the original owners, right?
Yeah, how really cool that was. So lots of treasures, of course, buttons. I didn't
Oh yes.
mention the buttons.
Right.
And it's funny because I've been researching them and they're from really different times.
Oh.
So it just keeps giving us clues and indications of the people that came before us there in the house and even the land.
Exactly. Exactly. Do you want to get into the history of the house a little?
Do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, so
let's
we're
see
going
what
back.
that S is for on that
So
chimney.
we're going to go back to, I believe it was 1954, with Pauline Rice deeded the property to Sperry Storm and his wife, Betty Storm. And why it's named The Sound of Music is because Sperry Storm had such a deep connection to music. He grew up playing instruments from a young age, and apparently his brothers played instruments too. And what is really cool is out of the house, I can just picture it when we're sitting there, is him giving private lessons for years out of that house. I mean, he really touched the community with music lessons and music through Frederick County Public Schools, and even being in bands and, just touching the community.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so cool about this house is that, Kathy's touching the community in different ways. Brian is too, but it just seems like all the owners have touched the community in some way.
Yes, and that's a great point that you bring up. So if you know Kathy McKenzie, she is a great benefactor, just like General James C. Clark
Right.
to downtown Frederick. She is supportive of the arts. She is supportive of the businesses. She is connected, and she loves the city in which she lives. I know when I had my cheese shop, she was a great supporter. And now a new cheese shop is open, and she was like, you need to go in there, which I
You did. I know you did.
But
yes.
she is just as beloved as
She
and
loves to
known.
support the community. Yes, and touches
as
it.
General James C. Clark. So she is the perfect person.
Oh, perfect steward for that home.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And going forward, I know that Sperry Storm, right, he has a foundation in his name, and his legacy just continues with touching students and going forward with school-age children and music lessons and
Yeah. And, maybe it's just my imagination, but when I look at 116 Clark Place and this beautiful brick facade and front porch and rear porch and the peaceful garden, it's just easy to imagine that music was part of that rhythm
Absolutely.
in the house. And maybe it was someone practicing a scale.
Right.
Maybe it was
Right.
Sperry preparing a lesson for the
Right.
next student.
Right.
But my mind really just
You can just hear it when you go in there.
I
Exactly.
can
Touch that home.
I can hear the music, absolutely.
hear the music.
And when you look at the Community Foundation of Frederick's website, it gives you a deeper glimpse into who Sperry was. And by the time he retired in 1976, he had taught privately for over 50 years. And he had worked in the public school as a music educator for 35 years.
It's amazing.
And it's just an incredible legacy
And
because
didn't
it
his
keeps
son
giving.
continue with the legacy
I heard
in
his
Frederick
son,
County?
Yes, and he was. Pete Storm was the principal of Twin
Was it
Ridge
Twin Ridge
Elementary.
Elementary, right?
When my girls were there, and I know there was the Panda Rock Band.
Yes, that's right.
Remember the Panda Rock
Panda
Band?
Rock
That was a
Band,
big
yes.
deal. That was really cool. So it's a gift and a talent and a family that continues to give back to Frederick County with educating because there's a scholarship, right? Tell about the
Yes.
scholarship.
Well, the scholarship is for school-age children. As I said, I think it goes from kindergarten to high school, and it just is a foundation set up to introduce children to music.
Amazing.
And to support that love of music, which I think is so cool.
I think it's so cool because we're still hearing that music. He may have stopped giving those lessons, but that music is still going on for generations. So
Absolutely.
it's heard in the story of a man whose home just on Clark Place became part of a larger story.
Well, that's what's so special about this home. Like I said, it's just the people that have occupied it and their legacy going forward and how they've touched the community and continue to touch the community.
Yeah. And, I really think that's one of the reasons that historic homes feel different than newer homes. They're layered, like you said before.
Yes.
It's just like an onion, peeling back all of those layers and looking at the people they live there and the impact that they made on the city. And 116 Clark Place is just a perfect example. It started as a planned residential neighborhood created when Frederick was growing and families were looking for quality homes, fresh air, and a sense of order and beauty. And essentially, the city grew around it.
Oh, it's so true. You can feel it when you
Yeah.
stand there on that street. Absolutely.
Yeah, and families, they came and they went.
Right.
Gardens were planted, music was taught, children grew up, owners left behind names, photographs,
Yes.
tools, memories, and clues.
Right. And then eventually Kathy and Brian walked through that front door and felt that unmistakable pull that old homes can have. The layers, as you said. They had goosebumps in the foyer and the feeling that that house had chosen them, too, which is so apropos. And that is the story behind the door at 116 Clark Place.
So thank you for joining us on this episode of The Story Behind the Door. And today we opened the door at 116 Clark Place and found that story of a planned neighborhood, Frederick's growth, family life, craftsmanship, gardens, and the feeling of home.
And a very special thank you to Kathy McKenzie for sharing all of her memories and helping us connect the history of this beautiful home to the life still being lived inside it. And thank you to Brian also, whose own chapter is part of this home and is continuing the story.
Yes, thank them so much. I'm Sharon Crisafulli,
And I'm Noreen Herod.
and we'll see you next time when we open another door and listen for the story waiting inside.
The story behind the door.
Because every home has a past.
And every past has a story worth telling.
Got a home with a history, a street with a secret. Every door has a story if you're willing to seek it. From old brick streets to the homes we adore. Frederick's filled with mystery and memories and more. The story behind the door. The story behind the door.